Hey, I'm Jisoo and today I feel particularly good, so I'm going to share with you my secrets. I'm talking tips and tricks to absolutely dominate, eviscerate everything in Gotham Knights. I'm talking disaster. You're going to be a catastrophe. Oh my god, that's a lot. And it is a lot, indeed, as you will see in the video. And you may want to do so now because the 4 co-op player mode is on the horizon. And I want you to be that guy. I want you, or girl, I want you to be that guy or girl who comes in the lobby, destroys everything, and goes without saying anything. When I'm done with you, you're going to be epic. So don't forget to drop a like and subscribe because it's about to go down with just the tips. The very first thing you want to keep in mind when going into Gotham Knights is that you have a lot of fractions. You have the regulators, the mob, you have the freaks, the assassins. You have so many people to be on the lookout for that it's very important to know who you are up against before you engage. With enough time, I'm confident that even Batman can defeat Goku. It's just about the preparation, and it's very important in Gotham Knights because certain fractions, certain people within a fraction may be weak or resistant against some kind of damage in particular. For example, the regulators are very good at dealing shock damage, so knowing that you can go there with an armor which can increase your shock resistance. The same thing can be said about the freaks. They're very good at using fire, so anything with ice is going to be very lethal to them. Preparation is everything in Gotham Knights. It can be the difference. It doesn't have to be. You don't even have to be you don't have to have the best gear. It's all about knowing what you will go against and preparing beforehand. Trust me, it's everything. That said, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that your build is not important. Your build is everything, and you want to make builds tailor-made for each character, each knight, because they play differently and they can make a build better or make a build worse. So you really want to take your time while making a build. But here's a tip when it comes to making those. For example, Robin is very good at elemental damage. So whenever you use a weapon with, I'll say, any kind of elemental damage, he's going to be able to make it shine because he can build up that elemental damage faster, and he can also deal more damage when enemies are, I'll say, affected by any effects in particular. But when it comes to the gear themselves, don't just put them for the sake of putting them. You need to read what active or passive benefits you get from every piece of gear. My armor, for example, is going to increase my base damage every single time my health is below half. Every single time my damage is going to be increased, my critical chances and damages are going to also be increased. So that's why I'm saying that you really want to read to know what works and what doesn't. You want to create synergy. You want everything to work properly together. And also when it comes to those mod slots, right? Sometimes you will stumble upon some, I'll say, faux mod slots gear, and you might be tempted to just go with them because you might be able to increase your power level even higher. But in my opinion, and with my experience, I can confidently tell you that the more the merrier does not apply all the time, especially in this case. And what I mean by that is that realistically, whenever you find a 4 mods slot gear, you go, wait, I'm going to be able to increase my power level even further. But in reality, you may lose some other things like the damage your weapon can deal, or even those passive attributes. Those I feel like when choosing your gear, this is the most important thing you should look at. What attributes can you get from that piece of gear? Forget about the damage, forget about everything else. What can you actually make out of it? Because if, for example, you're using Red Hood and you have that armor or that weapon, which makes it so that every time you land that critical, you're going to get health back, you become immortal. There is nothing that can kill you, and that's just one piece of gear. And that piece of gear can be weaker than some other piece of gear, but the benefits you get from that one piece of gear is unlimited. So again, you want to make builds tailor-made to characters, and you want to pay attention to what you're making. You want to slay. You just don't want to be that guy who is like, don't steal my kills. No, you want to be the one doing the kills. But hey, I know that making a build can be annoying and frustrating and time consuming. That's why I'm going to make a video or videos about each knight and how to push them to their fullest potential, and also the right build, the perfect build for them, depending on the playstyle you want to go for. So again, I got you covered, don't you worry. I don't know when they're going to come out, but they will come out. That is certain. So there's something you should know. Whenever you die in Gotham, I'm talking dying outside of those main missions or side quests. Whenever you die fighting criminals in Gotham, you lose some resources and crafting materials, which is, it sucks, especially early in the game because you don't have plenty of them. End game, it doesn't matter because you have so many resources, and maybe by the time you lose them, you already crafted every single piece of gear you wanted, so it doesn't matter. But early on, I got bummed. Here's a tip: whenever you die, you have like that 4 seconds timer before you respawn. If you quit the main menu before that timer ends and then come back, you're going to be brought back with your health. I mean, you're going to be almost dead, but hey, your resources are fine. So there is that. Don't lose resources anymore, please. It's frustrating and the grind is real. There's just one thing I want to add when it comes to making builds and whatnot. I strongly, very strongly advise having at least one elemental damage with you, and also advise having that on your ranged weapon, because some enemies are very elusive. They will dodge everything you do, and there's a certain gimmick. Sometimes you have to hit them with your ranged weapon, or sometimes you have to hit them with damage over time kind of, attack, which can prevent them from disappearing or dodging so much. So that's why I'm saying, whenever you go out, you want to be prepared, you want to be cautious, you don't know what you're going to encounter within a fraction, and you want to be able to retaliate no matter what. But you also want at the same time to bring the right element to the fight. You don't want to fight Mr. Freeze with ice. Trust me, I fought him for 1 hour with ice when the fight could have lasted just 5 minutes using fire. It was painful, the most painful hour of my life. And I don't want you to do that. And if you already did, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You don't want to make a mistake when it comes to the element you use. But let's say you want to use 2 elements. Strongly advise not using the same kind of elements on both weapons. If you want to do that, use 2 different, like ice and fire, acid and electricity, concussion and something else. Personally, I mostly go for one element on my ranged weapon, and I go elementless on my melee weapon. But if you must go with 2, you can actually, there's also a benefit to doing that. You can stun lock enemies into elemental state, right? You can build that concussion damage, and while they are concussion, is that even a word? I guess it's a word now. While they are concussion, you are setting them on fire. So when they are set on fire, then you are building back the concussion state. They can never retaliate, because whenever that elemental effect triggers, there is an animation and they are stuck. And while you are building the other state, they are also going to be stuck. So that's why I'm saying bring 2 different elements, because you'll be able to do that. You'll be able to lock them into a stand elemental state. Whew. So when it comes to the actual combat, it's very important that you use your environment. Those barrels are just not there for show. They are there for you to make them explode and create massive explosions, and they can actually give you an idea about what element of particular fraction or enemy can be weak against. So use them to your advantage, and whenever you are standing, I'll say on top of the building, and you can push enemies in nothingness, you want to do that. Batman doesn't kill, but good thing we ain't Batman, because we do a lot of killing here, a lot. And also usually in video games, dogs are the most annoying enemies, and if you don't have dogs, then it's the shooters. And here, since we don't have dogs, obviously it's the shooters. So whenever you want to go against a fraction, take care of the shooters first. Look on the rooftops and deal with those guys first, because they are so annoying and they can interrupt you every single time you try to do things. They are very annoying. So whenever you want to go into a fight, take care of everybody who can shoot at you first, and then deal with the rest. Oh, and how could I forget that there's also one very useful benefit to having elemental based damage on your weapons. Mostly the fact that your momentum abilities are going to be able to also use that element. For example, let's say your melee weapon is infused with ice. Whenever you use Robin's dummy, anybody who is actually caught in the radius when it actually explodes is going to be frozen. So that's really good. And yeah, definitely use your momentum abilities whenever you can. And to build them faster, strongly recommend using those time strikes as opposed to just hitting for the sake of hit. You don't want to mash in Gotham Knights. You want to use those time strikes because they deal more damage. They can stun lock. They have way more stun lock potential when it comes to enemies. Like regularly hitting them with just square is not going to cut it. You want to make them not retaliate, and some of them are really good at just hitting you while you hit them, which can be annoying. But again, time strikes are very good, and the same thing can be also said about evading. You don't want to jump around like a rabbit unless you are Nightwing. You want to make those timed evade because they give you more momentum, and they also give you the opportunity, the window to instantly punish a boss or enemy. Use those cautiously and don't just smash or just don't jump around like a rabbit. Use your momentum abilities with care, and elemental damage is key in Gotham Knights when it comes to dealing damage and dealing damage fast. There's also something you should keep in mind. Whenever you use a momentum ability, some of them can give you, I'll say, invincibility frames whenever you are performing the animation of triggering them. It's not the case for every single one of them, but I'll say it's mostly true for those whenever you hold R1 and X. I don't know, it's like your knighthood abilities, the very first ones you get. You know, when Batgirl can summon a robot, a drone, whenever Robin can, for example, call those nanobots, like those can give you invincibility frames. So you really need to be careful about the timing because enemies can still hit you when you're done or about to be done with the animation. But if you time it right and you are maybe caught in a very tricky situation, you feel like you cannot dodge, you can just activate those and bypass, completely avoid the damage. And it's not just those. Batgirl has the ability to leap back and throw her, she can jump in the air backwards and throw her batarangs, and if you time it right, you can just avoid getting hit altogether. If people are targeting you, then they won't be able to target you in the air, and it can actually be a way to dodge and also hit people the same way Red Hood jumps back, and I'll usually use his Robin's dummy to just dodge. Like whenever I know maybe someone is charging at me with those unblockable attacks, I'll just dodge using a dummy. That way I place myself out of the way while also being offensive because that dummy is going to deal damage. So know your abilities and use them adequately. And last but not least, whenever you are using your bicycle, you have infinite ammo for your ranged weapon. It's always infinite, but you never have to recharge, to reload whenever you are standing on your, riding your bicycle. And it's very useful when it comes to Red Hood in particular, because with the right build for him, you can deal massive damage to enemies with your ranged weapon. And if you are able to use your ranged weapon without having to ever reload, it can become very dangerous for enemies really fast. So I strongly recommend fighting on your bicycle. There's just one downside: you cannot go up buildings used on your bicycle. I tried for quite some time and it didn't work. So it's only for when you're fighting crimes in the streets, which is pretty lame. I want to be able to ride up buildings. Like why am I not able to? I think that's a missed opportunity. And that's it for today. I'll be sure to update to make another video if I come up with even more tips and tricks, but for now this should be more than enough to make you an absolute god legend at the game and prepared for the co-op mode in the future. You should be able to tackle any enemy and anything coming your way. I'm Jisoo, and be also sure to comment about just help us. If you have some tips and tricks I haven't mentioned, be sure to share them with us. And yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye. Bye bye.